and welcome to Batflips and Nerds, the baseball podcast with a British twist. I am your host today, Russell Easom, and spring training is upon us. There is live baseball to be watched, but is that a good or a bad thing? That's what we will be discussing today, and to do that, I have with me my fellow Stato, Darius. How are you doing, Darius?
I'm doing very well, thanks, Russ. I've enjoyed enlightening Rob about the state of Andre Agassi's hair, which maybe we'll put that in a bonus pod sometime or something. Just leave that hanging out there. People wondering what the hell is going on.
And as Darius alluded to, we have the man who will provide the whimsy to our two stat heads, Rob Navarez. How are you doing, Rob?
I'm just concerned that Andre Agassi lost his hair a lot earlier than I thought he did. Honestly, I thought his whole career was full Pat Sharp style locks. But no, 1995 he went bald. Who knew 1995? I could have sworn it was the whole length of his career was with the full length. My mother and auntie absolutely loved him. But that's probably a bit enough about that.
Hirsute individuals as such were probably the thing in vogue. Obviously, we'll get on to spring training in a second, but something monumental has happened in baseball since the last time we've managed to have one of these podcasts. Potentially the dumbest rule in baseball has been made less dumb, and the Yankees have decided to allow their players to have a well-maintained beard. By going by their standards, probably of well-maintained, I do not fall under that. Rob probably doesn't fall under that. Too much. It's too stubborn, Rob. I think it's the question is how you get to being like well-maintained. You have to grow it quickly, but
enough to trim. Yeah.
As someone who I can't remember what reason why we had a podcast drafting something, I had the Yankees beard museum effectively to attribute to all the beards that had been lost at all time. To me, it's ridiculous that this thing that even still partially exists, but seemingly the Yankees have stepped forward to what the current times is, Darius?
Well, I mean, they've gone a long way, at least. The well-maintained, the well-groomed part of it is sort of a desperate clinging on. But yeah, this is long overdue. This is one of those things that whenever it does come up with people who don't know baseball, they sort of look at me like I'm playing a joke on them or something, that they can't believe in the 21st century that anybody could possibly have this policy on a sports team. It has been one of the more ludicrous things about the Yankees for quite a long time. So yeah, very good that they've done it. I do wonder, was there somebody out there, did Steinbrenner try and sign someone and they were like, no, I'm keeping the beard. You can't have me. I want a beard. I don't know. I don't know if that has been brought up, anecdotally. Even if it was once, I think it'd probably be worth doing it. But yeah, aside from free agents who don't want to go there, it's just a ludicrous thing that was in place for far too long. So glad to see it go. And yeah, it will be fun to actually see Yankees with beards and to see what well-groomed means. How far can we push the boundaries of grooming?
I think, Rob, like if you're someone like Devin Williams, who's basically had a pretty big beard for probably the last 6 years of his baseball career, I can't think of him without the beard. I still don't think of him without the beard. He literally turned up, 2 pitchers and catchers reported having it shaved off, and then the day later they're like, you know what, that would have been fine. Like, I'd be effing and jeffing. Like, I don't know about you.
Yeah, absolutely. I've got a feeling he's got to be more part of this, surely. Like, this has got to be, they got a superstar reliever here, like absolute top-notch geezer. If he's kicked off and, demanded, I'm not going to play, I don't want to be here, I want to go, upsetting the team, maybe this was the straw that broke the camel's back. Maybe it was him. I don't know. But yes, he's got to be pissed off. Absolutely. Like he's lost his signature beard. I think he even described it as signature beard at some point. And now he's allowed to grow it back. But maybe it'll come in with a little bit of grey in it. It'll make him look more distinguished. I think it could be a good thing.
I'll give you another question, Rob. Do you think this would have happened if the Yankees won the World Series last year?
Wow. Well,
do you think this is, as Darius has said, it is a potentially reaction to some free agents that may be coming around this year or maybe next year?
Where are you pointing this? I'm not seeing. Next year. Who's next year? Oh, Vladdy. Surely, yes. Okay, yeah, that makes perfect sense now. My eyes have been opened. Yeah, it's got to be, hasn't it? I mean, would you keep him under the is he well groomed? Would we consider him well groomed? I'm going to have to get a picture up of his beard now because I have it in my head as slightly rough. If you all want to play along at home, I'm not that Vladimir. That one is not a good Vladimir. That one.
Well, Rob is googling. Darius, do you agree with my statement that this is actually a losing position from the Yankees? Like the George M. Steinbrenner would be rolling in his grave that they were reacting in this way to try and get the free agents. Like if those free agents wouldn't shave their beard for the Yankees, they're not good enough for the Yankees.
Yeah, that probably is the kind of thing that old George would have said, although he was also in the habit of, making very ill-advised free agent decisions on a regular basis. So who can say how he would have reacted to this, really? Yeah. Well, if they'd won the World Series, I don't... Yeah, it seems like odd timing. I don't quite understand why this is the moment, unless it is related to Vlad, and in that case... don't think it's that likely he, has walked back his he would never play for the Yankees statement, but I imagine that's more to use them as market leverage than for anything like he'd actually want to sign there. I'll let Rob weigh in on whether he thinks the beard is sufficiently well groomed at this point in time.
I'm going to say no. I'm going to say that is not a well-groomed beard. I think it has been a very, very neat sculptured chin strap. But I think generally he's certainly not the Charlie Blackmon, but he's really sort of letting it go a little wild around the cheeks. It's got some wisp to it. It's got a little bit kind of I'm a bit wild and dangerous look. And is that I don't think that's well groomed. And okay, controversial take. I don't have a problem with the well groomed element. They are. I work in customer facing. There's got to be an element of presentation about it. They are very customer facing. They're on the television. There's a uniform standard. I don't think it's unusual to have some sort of dress code about working if you are on display for the public. So yeah, why not? Well groomed is fine. I'm okay with that.
Are you going to go out there and tell Brandon Marsh he's not allowed to wet his hair?
Is wetting it grooming it? I would say it's fairly well groomed. Grooming is in the essence of the effort rather than necessarily the result, perhaps.
Okay. Well, given the fact that they have an on-site barber, and we heard about like a AAA level Yankee prospect basically getting his beard sorted literally the day afterwards and being one of the first people to wear the Yankees uniform with a beard. So we'll see how this all rolls. We probably could talk about this for another 45 minutes if we're perfectly honest. This is the type of nerdery and absurdity that is right up our alley, but we are here to talk about spring training. We're here to talk about the good and the bad of spring training, because when we get this access to baseball, there is an initial joy, I think, for a lot of us. We have been without watching MLB. There has been other opportunities to watch some other things, with some winter series, with even some World Baseball Classic qualifiers that have been ongoing. But there's something about MLB, obviously, with that premium element, but it's not all good. So, but I think we'll start with a good each. Darius, what is a good thing about spring training?
I think one good thing about spring training, generally speaking, and this can veer into the ridiculous, but it's just a nice time for optimism. Nobody is yet eliminated, not even the Rockies or the White Sox. People might say technically they are, but at this moment in time, they are not. You still have that opportunity to get excited about things. And that might not be, we're going to make the playoffs. That might be, look at our young prospects that are in spring training. Whatever it is, you just haven't had that time. That can go south very quickly in the season if you get out to a 1-9 start and everybody's upset. But in spring training, the slate is clean. You've got time. Obviously, things can go wrong in spring training, but for the most part, it's a time for optimism. And I think that's nice, especially, after the long winter of waiting for baseball. People can get excited about the season again.
So,
speaking of optimism, has anybody looked at... Sorry. Carry on.
Go on, Rob. After you, gentlemen first.
Well, I was just saying, speaking of optimism and it all going well, has anybody actually looked at the standings for the Grapefruit and/or Cactus Leagues? No one does. Of course they don't. I would like to say that the Chicago White Sox are currently 2-8. So with 200 winning percentage, it's really sad, but it's exactly what you'd expect.
So I do see the side to your optimism, Darius. I do think it is something that we get into this level of the season, and like in some regards, you can't be beaten down by anything that has happened just yet, especially at the start of spring training. The thing that I will sadly say so is that to me this is either pointless optimism or just optimism that isn't actually believed. It's cliched optimism almost to say that there are people out being there oh yeah, well, we're gonna surprise some teams. The players will be saying that and managers will be saying that, and in some regards these guys are athletes and they have to probably believe that they are going to perform quite well. But how many of them really believe the stuff that they're saying when it's going to be you know what, if you're on the White Sox this year and when someone says, well, we're going to surprise people. Well, you surprised people last year, just in a really bad way. Surprising people this year would probably be getting to 70 wins. So that's not actually good. I had a whole tirade about this, but if any of you listen to the Baseball Barbercast, their last episode was talking about the cliches. So I would direct you in their direction instead of me just going on another tirade about this.
Yeah, I think that's a slightly different category of the teams, and I do have a bit about that later. I think I'm just thinking about it in the sense of people enjoying the game of baseball, in terms of the public. But yes, I certainly agree that we get a lot of nonsense out of teams in terms of what expectations are and where they think they might be going this season. That is clearly not true.
All right,
the only way is up for the White Sox.
Well, not if they have a 200 winning percentage, Rob.
They didn't have the worst record ever, statistically speaking. So
there's records to break.
There are the wrong records still to break. As I've counted, Darius is good with a bad. Rob, bring us back to something good. What do you enjoy about spring training?
I really like a tiki bar. Outfields are full of bars that have got a grassy roof, which maybe isn't the best idea in Florida with the daily thunderstorms. They've got grassy roofs, and there's a great big fat guy in a Hawaiian shirt sat there enjoying a fruity beverage with an umbrella. In pretty much every game, most of these stadiums have a tiki bar, and there's something very, very not corporate about a tiki bar. And if we spend the whole season looking at major league stadiums with adverts for insure this, bomb that, whatever. But to have a purely frivolous thing sat out there in the outfield, that's lovely. Yeah, we lost that when we lost the Miami Marlins sculpture. And so the tiki bar makes me think of that. It's something completely frivolous that sat out there in the outfield. People aren't really watching the games because how many of us really are? And you've got a grass bar in the outfield. That's great. That's just frivolous. That's nice. There's no intentions in it. It's just a thing we can enjoy that is there for reasons. Why has that become a tradition? I don't know, but it's great. Love it.
So, Rob, have you gone to watch spring training games in Florida, or?
I have. I've only seen the one. I saw the Tigers play the Blue Jays, the Tigers game, Tiger Stadium. And yeah, there's a tiki bar there. That was great.
I'm not going to class myself as a seasoned spring training person, but I've done it 3 or 4 times in Arizona, and from my experience of those places, they are frequented by people who are drunk by the 3rd inning, and not just
my people.
I've been to quite a few MLB games. Probably, I think I've been to more spring training games just because I love to get out to Arizona at that time of the year. But I've never seen someone kicked out of an MLB game, of a regular season game, for being too drunk, and I've seen that probably on about a quarter of the spring training games that I've been to. Someone stumbling around in the green grass outfield area and falling onto people who they have absolutely no business with whatsoever.
Exactly. What makes a family picnic better than a drunken fat man in a Hawaiian shirt falling over onto it?
Darius, have you experienced spring training?
I've not been to spring training in person, no. So I can't comment on tiki bars or any other aspects of this other than the bits you see. It sort of reminds me when you see people at spring training, It sort of reminds me a bit of like the Wimbledon vibe, they're just sort of like sat out on the hill with like a picnic blanket and a bunch of drinks, and there happens to be some sport going on. But yeah, it's very much that kind of atmosphere.
So
That's nice. That's nice.
I'll sneak in here and kind of put what was going to be one of my nicest. Yeah, like I honestly like going to spring training games is really fun. I will actually say that like there is a far you generally aren't caring about what the result is going to be, even if you're watching like the teams that you like, you're looking to see kind of who's going to maybe perform well, kind of just be like, oh, for me it was like, oh, I get to see Mike Trout play, or I get to see Ichiro play, or I get to see Jackson Churio play when he's 2 years away from being like a major leaguer. You get to see things that you do not get at other games. But also the spring training games for me were just an interaction with a whole load of fans that you just do not like normally interact with at a game. There is a far more jovial atmosphere around kind of like what's going on. I remember being out last year telling my friends when we were watching a Giants game, being like, yeah, all of the prospects that are here, none of them are going to be on the starting line, going to be in the starting 25 come the start of the season. And some woman behind me was just heckling me, being like, what do you know? You sound like you're from the UK. What do you know? And I was just like, wow. But it ended up
Well,
having a
open that
fun
can of worms,
conversation afterwards. So like, I just think that I'm not certain if that would have. I've had great interactions in regular season games as well, but like everybody was a few beers in, and and it just led to a great atmosphere. Darius,
I like that one. That's very good.
what do we not like about spring training?
Well, the thing that really puts the dampener on the optimism usually very quickly is when you discover who has got themselves injured, or indeed was already injured at the end of last season and didn't tell anybody about it until they show up at spring training. And we get this flurry every year. Everyone shows up in their training except that one guy. He's not training, and the beat writer goes and asks the manager. He's like, "Oh yeah, he's just got a torn ligament. It'll be out for the next 4 months." Just like drop that in there casually. So that's always a bit of a downer. You're excited about your team. We got a great unit together, and then you realise you're about to sign Kyle Gibson in mid-March because somebody's blown out the UCL, which is going to happen inevitably. We haven't really had, I don't think, the major, somebody's lost the season unexpectedly yet, but we all know that it's coming. And
there was one. I swear there was one.
I thought Lewis Hill is probably
I can't
out
find it
for
now.
considerable amount of
Lewis
time.
Hill is going to be out about six to 8 weeks, I think. Maybe it's a big strain, but we haven't
Less than I
had
thought.
a big Tommy John, I don't think. Not that I'm aware of that was an unexpected big name pitcher.
Anthony Rendon. He's lost the season probably.
I said unexpected, Rob.
Okay, sorry. Yeah, that was fairly expected.
It is a slightly weird one because like on one hand I'm like, our teams, surely the teams know, or like that Giancarlo Stanton or whatever was not feeling well during the off season. Surely like again, the fact that he has neither elbows working properly.
Both elbows. What has he done?
What has Stanton been doing?
What
Why
has
has he got
happened?
tennis elbow? Was he playing
Both
tennis
elbows.
with one arm, and then he was like, "Oh, that hurts. I'm going to use the
Let's
other
do the
hand."
other one.
Well,
I know you
yeah.
get tennis elbow from other things, but I just wonder what has he been doing.
Yeah, and it's kind of like hilarious in itself that how that's happened. But it's like surely at some point during the off season, Stanton's gone, hey, like this is happening, or whatever. But we don't hear anything from the teams until like spring training starts, and then they even sometimes try and just like mask it for a few days, for as long as they can before it's like, yeah, you know what, this person isn't starting now. We kind of really have to say that like they're injured, and yeah, we're gonna have to do something about it. And so part of my head, I'm like, teams are obviously trying to push this information back as late and late as possible, so other teams don't know that someone is injured. But it's still basically teams know by now. We now know all the people who've carried injuries into the off season. Have you really impacted? I guess most of the free agents have been signed. So is that enough of a reason to delay this information because it plays into how other teams are going to spend their money?
Maybe they just don't care. Maybe we the consumer just aren't important enough. Like, oh yeah, he is broke. Yeah, sorry. We should have said something.
Yeah, maybe.
Actually, I looked up the stats on injuries. I compared this year to last year, up to yesterday. Which have you had a feeling that the injuries have been better or worse? How have you felt it's gone?
I've not heard too many major sproings, but I also don't think we get the major sproings for until like the next couple of
Not
weeks
yet.
when people have truly ramped up and are getting close to 100%. So I'm gonna say I'm gonna give it a push, Rob. It's the same.
How
You're
are you?
absolutely spot on.
I was going to say, how have you assessed this, Rob?
I've used Fangraph's tracker. I've gone down. I've literally counted
It's
every
counted
single
the
one
number
that's
of injuries.
happened.
Yeah.
Yeah, the number of injuries. Yeah, absolutely. I would say though, statistically, if we take last year as an example, this next week we are likely to have about 4 Tommy Johns. And like this is the week it happens. This is the week it's all going to go to hell. I think I even saw somebody tread on a. It was in our chat, wasn't it? Who's hurt themselves treading on a
Jordan
sprinkler
Walker
head?
trod on a sprinkler. Yeah. Jordan Walker, desperate to finally get his big break and show everybody he was, going to be the great player everyone thought he was going to be as a prospect.
Big break of his foot.
Instead, has trodden on a sprinkler.
Well, given we're talking about things that kind of are news related, I'll throw out something that I don't like about spring training is that it's the first access that beat writers have had to players in a long time, and we get absolutely stupid questions being asked. Like, I just think that like people are just being like, oh, like, are you ready for the next season or whatever? I'm like, what generic thing are they going to respond to that? Like, I do get in some regards that like true journalists have to ask the obvious questions so they can have the soundbite or the thing that they can say that this person said, quote, and they can put it in their piece. But like, it doesn't do anything. Like, I read something to say that's kind of just like, oh, this has happened. And then I would just gonna double down here and also like what happens with like with Rafael Devers, where I'm just like, that to me, and people probably might disagree, just felt like ambush journalism, where it's like, you know what, like I'm just going to basically push at something that, even though the Red Sox have constantly said, Bregman's going to play second, Bregman's going to play second, Bregman's going to play second, that's why we've bought him. The first thing we're going to do is, Devers, where do you play? And he's like, I play third. Like, and then it's basically just like, Devers is not a team player. It's like, okay, thank you for your sensationalist journalism. Like, to me, you just sound like a tool of a journalist, not actually Devers sounding like a tool. But that might just be my opinion. Thoughts?
Yeah. I see where you're driving with it. Yeah. I mean, it is tough though, isn't it? Because these journalists have really got to balance the print with the obvious questions because they need to keep that access. But yeah, they've got to make a story too. They've got to make a living, haven't they? So it is a tough one. It is a tough position, and often here they're trying to make stories out of nothing because let's face it, it's spring training.
That's
Other
it,
than
though.
people getting injured, it is nothing. Yeah.
Am I being an overreacting here, Darius? Well, let's start with the first point where it's just like, do we just get too much like, I'm in the best shape of my life? Like, let's start there with that cliche.
Don't say that anymore.
I think we probably do. Yes, I suppose there is some merit to just going around and like, is everybody healthy? Especially when it's some of the guys who were not healthy at the end of last season. There's some journalistic merit to just asking those questions because, as we've talked about, sometimes nobody has asked the question, and then at some point you go, why hasn't that guy been on the field for the last week? And then you get the answer. So I appreciate that that is a thing that needs to be done. But yeah, what else are most of these players going to say? You run into the other interesting one, but most of them are going to tell you what a great offseason they've had and how they're in better shape than last year, which mostly will not be true. So yeah, I think we do get too much of that. The Devers thing is a weird one. I'm sure it doesn't help that it's Boston and they probably are trying to make a story out of it. It also felt a bit like, they should have, the team should have funneled that better. They should have known that question was coming. And they should have made sure that everybody had their answer ready. Like Devers, would have known he'd get asked that, and somebody should have had a conversation with him and said, "This is what we're going to say," and and then they wouldn't have really had to make a story out of it. But clearly that didn't happen. So yeah, I think probably a bit on both sides, and somebody. To be fair, it's the biggest story of spring training so far. But right, probably even if it's not a story, it's probably the most interesting news item that's happened so far.
And given the fact that we now think that because he does have a slight injury, he might start the season as DH. It was a complete non-story in that regard.
Which is where
as
he
well.
should have been anyway.
We'll get like five games of Bregman at third base, and everybody won't want anything to change. So
yeah, we'll see. All right, Rob, give us a trifecta of bad then, as we've just done. Darius and I have given one.
Okay, I'm going to stick with the media. And it's about commentary teams. And specifically, it's about commentary teams saying, it's spring training for X2. So every time somebody balls this something up, so maybe an umpire makes a bad call, or ball boy drops a ball, or there's someone misses a catch in the outfield, or perhaps the cameraman's looking the wrong way. It's spring training for them too. We've heard that. Get another trope. It's boring. It's done. It's old school now. Yes, it's spring training for them too. We've heard all 30 teams commentators say about every single thing that goes wrong in spring training, and we've heard it for the last 20 plus years probably. Certainly as long as I've been watching baseball. So, yeah, let's find something different to say. And if you haven't got anything to say, just shut up. Let it play. It's fine. Talk about prospects. Don't talk about spring training for him too. Yeah, boring. Heard it now.
I would say that I am not too aware of this because I think the total amount of innings that I've watched live is 1 so far this season, and probably gets.
Was it a good one?
Yeah, not really. Just turned. I just wanted to have a look at Roki Sasaki pitch, but like that's honestly that's the
spring
only
training for him too.
Yeah, exactly. Like I've only watched 1 inning of baseball. I've watched loads of clips. I've looked at loads of data, but I do not watch the games live because, in most regards, I couldn't care less. Darius,
it's nice background.
Do you think this Rob is right with telling people that they can't use the same joke, the same almost dad joke that has been used for 30 years?
I think it's probably a function of it being concentrated in a short period. I think if you are a person who listens to all 162 regular season games, for example, you might notice certain things reemerge. You get the odd gem, you get the Jason Bonettis, you get the Joe Davises who are, engaging and interesting, and they bring lots of new content. But I bet a lot of those guys sort of roll out the same things quite a few times over the course of the season. But spring training is a very focal point, and yeah, there's probably not a lot to say, especially when it gets to the 6th inning and everybody on the field is guys who's going to go down to the minors in a day or two. And so they're just. I think that it's probably a moment where I would expect them to just not talk about baseball, which is another common feature of baseball commentary. Frequently, if a game has gone dull, you will find them veering into completely different territory altogether, like Andre Agassi's hair. So, yeah, I don't really mind that much. I'm not paying a huge amount of attention to spring training commentary, so it's fine.
So, Darius, give us something that you do enjoy about spring training then.
I like new pitches. I like, the stuff about players redesigning their arsenal. This is reporting I am interested in. Sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, but I just like that. People are trying things out. The kick change is the new sweeper. That's the new pitch this year, which, as I understand it, is sort of a change up, but you give it a little extra flick off one of your fingers as you release it to sort of change the spin axis. Clay Holmes is throwing this amongst other people as part of his transition to starting. So, I just kind of like that innovation. I like hearing about the sort of pitch design part of it. And, quite often it does give us a bit of an insight into the season. This is sort of the foundation for a few of these pitchers having a bit of a breakout year. So, just kind of enjoy that thing. And there's sort of time for that as well. One of those things that in the grind of the 162, I think can get a bit lost, and you'll read a story maybe after the season. How was this guy so good? Oh, it's because he did this, but we've got a bit more time to focus on that stuff in the spring. So I think it's a good time for it.
Yeah, I think it's a great chance. I think you get some people who are either free agents or minor league players trying to make a difference, and you'll hear in the off season that they've gone to Driveline or they've done something else to try and add a new pitch. But when you see veteran major leaguers or even kind of people you were just like, oh, you're inventing a new pitch, like they have to stay on top of like what's going on, and it's really interesting to see like how many people are trying to get to that like Yu Darvish, Seth Lugo sort of territory where it's like here's like 8 pitches which I know I can maybe throw on a day, and as 3 of them are working, then I'm solid. Like I see more people like shifting towards this mentality of try and throw everything and see what sticks.
I think kick change sounds like a dance move.
It does bit, yeah. What would that be, do you think?
Well, it's gonna be a kind of a high kick with one, or like a medium kick with one leg, and then sort of a little shuffle onto the other leg. Not really my wheelhouse, if I'm honest.
I was thinking it was more going to be something like it's like a change of tempo or whatever. So it's like you're going at like a certain speed, and then there's like a bam bam, and then it's like, and now we're at the tempo change. So
I like it. I see that. It's like a key change, but with tempo. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, I get that. I get that. You always need a stool to stand up off of, but yeah, the kick change. Yeah. I'm going to bring the kick change to the dance floors of South Coast over the coming weeks. You'll see.
Make us a TikTok with it, Rob, and it'll go viral.
Nothing sadder than a 40-year-old fat man dancing in his kitchen.
Yeah. Well, do it not in your kitchen, and it might go viral.
Like that. We're all in agreement for something.
I think I'll jump on to what Darius has said, that like it's one of the things I look at as well. I also love to just see like I look at exit velocity stats. This is the real nerddom of me to be like, oh, you hit something very hard. Like you didn't hit anything hard like that last year. Has something changed? And then I have a good 10-15 minutes of going to be like, okay, now I need to see who you hit that off, because it's like, did you actually like take someone deep at 105 miles an hour, but it was like an 84 mile an hour fastball down the middle by someone from AA, which, you know what, quite a lot of the major leaguers can actually punish a really average pitch. Did you get it off someone good? Did you get off that? And so I like to go through these little tangents of kind of what actually was the reason behind something good happening. And so I find spring training can be great for that. Like, I'm not going to step on something that I know Darius is going to talk about later about trusting outcomes too much. But like, I really start to kind of, I see one outcome I like, and then I have my investigatorial cap comes on, and I'm like, ooh, should I care about this? The answer is 95% of the time, no. But I do love the fun that kind of comes with like, new statistics. Let me have a play with Baseball Savant. Rob, take us away from this stats nerddom and pitching design.
I was going to stay with stats nerdom.
Oh,
I was going to stay there.
Come to our world, Rob. Come to our world.
Join us.
I looked up WRC Plus. Yeah, I did. I love that bit in spring training where you have that ridiculously unnecessary optimism in a grizzled veteran or a prospect who realistically has absolutely no chance of carrying on the kind of stats that they're showing in spring. But I mean, like, so I did a little bit of a leaderboard. I had a look at the leaderboards. Again, this was yesterday for spring training so far. And right at the top, you've got Ellie De La Cruz. Fine, absolutely. Fantastic. Expect that. Next up, you've got Curtis Mead. Hey, there's a Ray. Fantastic. Looking forward to him. I mean, he's been great in spring training in the minor leagues for a long time. So, you know, can't hang on too much. After that, Victor Scott II. That is our third best hitter right now in spring training. Victor Scott II, a man who had, I believe, a negative WRC plus for the season last year. He's right up there. Then Jacob Huckabees. Who the is Jacob Huckabees? I don't know, but he's great. So yeah, and then you can just go to the. You got Lawrence Butler, fine. Vinny Capra, also horrific hitter last year. And Jorge Soler right up there. So like you got everything there. You got like new guys. You've got guys who should long ago have quit. You got everything, and there's a little bit of hope that we picked up Eloy Jimenez. You know what? Maybe he's going to turn it around. He's going to be an all-star. Like it could happen. So there's that optimism in spring training of these guys who they don't really stand a chance. But right now, they are top of their game. And you think, you know what? It could maybe just like that scratch card is going to give me that million. Is the chance it's going to happen? And it's right now that you're like, it's happening. It's happening. It's going to happen. We're going to have this. And it won't happen. But that moment of beautiful optimism, I love it. It's fantastic. I could not be more on the Eloy Jimenez train.
So I think as an individual, being potentially optimistic about someone is fine. I think I'm going to lead Darius into his objectionable thing is the people who then turn it into like, this person's going to be amazing. Look at the spring training stats. Like, they're going to be amazing. Because guess what? At the start of spring training, the bad pitchers pitch. And towards the end of spring training, the better pitchers pitch. Like, half the best pitchers didn't even start pitching until games like this week. So, like, Darius, tell us about small sample sizes and why people really should just ignore absolutely everything in spring training.
Shut up.
I don't mind when it's like Rob is obviously aware that most of these things are not going to happen, but I think far too often, and not just in spring training, it happens in the regular season too, but spring training is the first action we get, and so it gets magnified, that we do get this insane amount of weight put into something that many studies have shown basically do not matter. Like, the most important thing about spring training is that you make it through healthy and get to the regular season. The rest of it is almost all noise. So yeah, it does get a little bit wearing when people are putting a lot of weight into a lot of performances, most of which came against quite low caliber competition. And most of these players, Major League Baseball is really hard. The list of people like Curtis Mead, who, it remains to be seen how Curtis Mead's career goes, but there's a long list of people that have come before him who absolutely mashed in the minor leagues and just could never do it in the majors. Couldn't even get close because it's a lot harder. And so once those players start facing the good pitching, then they will be in trouble. Once the pitchers start facing the good hitters, then they'll be in trouble. And also, baseball is just super random. We could do spring training 3 times as long and it still wouldn't tell us that much about these players. Definitely don't do that, by the way. We don't want more spring training. So yeah, this is not something that I get annoyed about, like, exclusively in baseball. At work all the time, I'm annoyed about people who don't understand what the small sample sizes are. But this is a sort of extreme version of the problem.
Don't
So
get me
you're saying I
started on
should
people.
go all in on Vinny Capra?
Probably not on 28-year-old Vinny Capra. No, I think that ship might have sailed.
Yeah, don't get me started on small sample sizes. That's basically like my work life for probably the last 15 years. About people trying to make conclusions on small sample sizes. I think that what would get me is that there's quite a lot of the time people do read more into it that I think they should be more knowledgeable to be like, this doesn't matter. It's like when a player or a veteran is like, oh yeah, I had a great spring training, and you're like, yeah, but that makes no difference. Like, you probably know from times before in any point in your career that, like, you can have a good 50 games and then have a terrible 50 games and then have a good 50 games, and there probably wasn't any connection between what's happened. Like, you just have to kind of take that rough with the smooth. And then again, where you have like some people, some media, some kind of like podcasts, you're just like, come on, guys, that this isn't anything. I don't want to kind of like yuck someone's yum or whatever. I don't want to say that like this is like you shouldn't be happy, but like you gotta please just understand that like there isn't actually like anything behind this, like anything behind this. Like, also, this gets us into then the regular season where like I am going to predict right now that like the first time that the Dodgers lose, if they lose the first game or if they lose like the first couple of games, everybody is going to be like, the Dodgers got it wrong. And it's like half of that is going to be a joke. And half of it isn't going to be a joke. Because there are going to be the people that believe that like 2 games in baseball makes the difference. But we're
I'll
getting
read
outside.
you last year's. Does anybody want to guess? I've got the top 3 hitters from spring training last year. Does anyone want to guess a hitter before I read them out?
Victor
I
Robles.
will take
No,
I
not
like
Victor
that.
Robles.
Nico Goodrum.
Not Nico Goodrum. Number 3, Mitch Haniger.
Ooh.
of the Seattle Mariners. Did Mitch Haniger have a good season?
Meh.
He did not. No. Pretty meh. Pretty bad for Mitch Haniger. He was WRC plus of 85 in the regular season last year. So actually quite bad. Second place, Mauricio Dubon.
Ooh.
Mauricio Dubon was a little bit better. He had a WRC plus of 87 in the regular season. In first place.
It's gonna be a good one.
It's going to be a great one.
Anthony
For the
Rendon.
Kansas City Royals, Nick Pratto. First baseman Nick Pratto. Do you want to guess how many plate appearances Nick Pratto got for the Royals last season?
12.
It was one.
Oh.
Oh,
I knew-
I'm
I-
close to zero.
No, it wasn't. It was 0. He got into a game, but they didn't
Hey!
actually give him a plate appearance.
I was about to say,
So
he got called up, so...
Yeah, so he has.
Basically, they just never gave him a chance to shine on the
Just-
big stage.
Didn't give him a
God damn it.
chance. He did have a 91 WRC plus at AAA, so
Yeah, an
maybe
infinite
not that
WRC
surprising.
plus in the majors.
he had a negative 100, actually.
How did he manage that when he didn't have a plate appearance?
Maybe it was he had a sack fly. Do you think he had a sack fly in that
He
one
must
plate
have, yeah.
appearance? And that would give him a...
or was asked to
I'm
bunt,
going to have to find out.
or...
We're gonna have to find out now. How
Anyway.
else can you achieve that? Is there a... Oh, maybe he hit, but he got caught out trying to stretch it to a double.
No, you could
Well, it'd still be a plate
with the
appearance.
single.
Yeah, no, that's right. Yeah, with plate appearance, wouldn't it? Yeah.
He doesn't
Did
have
he-
a bat.
Did he
batting-
hit the pitcher with a pitch? Did he catch it and throw it back?
I wonder, Darius, if
Therefore,
it just...
walking the pitcher.
Maybe it basically just categorizes it as, like, if it doesn't let you have it as blank and just negative 100 is effectively just like what it... Like
Yeah,
a
he
null
doesn't
value.
have a game log.
Yeah, so
Batting game log.
it'll
for
just be a
last
null
year,
value replacement to go the data terms. But yeah,
You are such stats fun, you boys. Jesus Christ.
That's fun. This is the best thing
Wow,
about spring
man.
training.
so I'll tell you something that I love about spring training. We get to see major league players have to deal with new rules that they've never used their entire life. And I think this is generally one of the funniest things that exists in baseball, because you've got major league players who've been like, I've played this game for 20 years, and now I have to deal with Rob Manfred's new bullshit that he's going to put into the league. And you get people like Max Scherzer being like, I don't know why we have this balls and strike check. Like, that should all be done by umpires. I think humans should do it all. When he basically tried to check two things and got them both wrong. It's like, or you have things where like Trey Turner took one down the middle and then just used the check to basically waste 20 seconds and try and play around with the pitcher. Like I'm gonna love to see if somebody does that at some
That's a good
point.
one.
Challenges a pitch to basically get, like, if they've used their like batter timeout and decides to challenge a pitch that's like straight down the middle, so they get another 20 seconds. Like, there are so many things to play with this, and there's so many things that kind of hopefully that will come out of this. We'll see how things can be used one way or the other. But I also then just love seeing Terry Francona saying all of my major league players are not allowed to challenge because it's not in the season this year. So I don't want you learning anything about it, like or using it or not using it. So it's like, okay, like it might be happening like the year afterwards, Terry. You know, you can plan a little like in advance to get someone's ideas. But yeah, I love major league players having to basically deal with new rules and throwing the toys out the pram the same way that like most people do at work when they get change.
Very good. Yeah, I mean, are we gonna see? We're gonna see some weird ones, aren't we? You know, somebody who doesn't want to be walked. Like, oh, didn't hit me. Review it. Oh, that's not reviewable, is it?
Yeah, it's all
there's
these
gonna be
things,
some
like,
weird stuff.
I think when this
Like,
eventually
they don't
comes
want to
in-
walk because they reckon they can hit a home run, and then they're gonna get in trouble for for not taking the walk. You know, there's gonna be someone with the ego.
Well, it's the point of like you're waiting for like the whole thing that I'm waiting for is the game that gets decided on an overturned decision where you get like a full count walk and it's challenged and it actually was a strike and it's a strikeout and it ends the game. Like I genuinely think that this system adds drama to the game because I like tennis. I've watched a lot of tennis and I think the way that the deciding the decisions and seeing it shown and the crowd going ooh, or one way or the other, or ooh. Like I think this genuinely does add drama to the game in a way that the other review sucks the life out of games because it takes like 2 minutes for them to go have a discussion with New York about what actually happened. But no, I think there's plenty of fun and shenanigans that are gonna happen because of this. We've talked a fair bit about spring training. Rob, Darius, do you have anything left that you want to go quick fire on things that we have left? Anything left for you, Rob?
Okay, yeah, things I like, just quick fire then. People stopped talking about football, which I am very, very glad about, because just because I like an American sport does not mean I like all the American sports. So if I'm following you on social media because I like what you say about baseball, does not necessarily mean I want to hear what you have to say about American football, because I don't care. So I'm happy about that one going. I like the fact that I'm not quite so bored of the adverts yet. Although already the rotation of Jojo, Tani, Betts, Alonso, and Shurio in there, aren't they amazing things that you guys haven't watched enough to know they're on constant repeat. They have 30 teams where they could do a little profile of a player of, oh, he's wonderful, he's amazing. But they picked like 6 and 2 of them are from the Dodgers. So that's starting to get better. This was a positive. So that's my positives. And the other 2 negatives I had is you don't actually hear much about training. It's called spring training, but like, what training do they do? And why am I not hearing about the I want to hear a bit more. Like, you'll hear like a soundbite from each team. Like, oh, we put large fences in the infield so that we'd encourage our players to hit a bit higher. Okay, right, that's one thing. Great. Like, what else in training actually happens? No. Like, I want to see the training bit. Give me a bit more about that. Like, there's nothing. The games are boring. Let's see more about the training. And lastly, I don't enjoy the constantly vibrating shit camera angles from the center field camera because they make me feel sick. And I've got a horrible feeling Steinbrenner Field is going to give me fits the entire damn season.
Is that because they have like a less permanent facility, or they have like the wind is basically blowing it around?
There's no stand, so the wind is blowing through the cameras, and they're usually on scaffolding because there's not always a camera there during the regular season. And so every time someone walks past it, the whole thing's like that. And yeah, so it's like that constant vibrating camera. Like from over here, the Blue Jays one's an awful angle in particular. But yeah, I can't, the camera angles really annoy me.
All right. Darius, your quick fires that we've got left.
Well, one other thing I liked follows on from yours, really, Russ, was that just players taking things a bit less seriously. Especially with the ABS, we have seen some quite funny challenge moments. People just sort of like, yeah, why not? You know, it's out there. I'm going to give it a try. I know that sometimes they obviously know that it wasn't even wrong, but they're like, well, why not? Just going to go out here and test the system, make sure it works. So I quite like that. People just a bit looser, having a bit more fun. That's good. My other negative was when teams claim that no one believes in them. And it's never like the White Sox say that nobody believes in them. It'll be like a team that's projected for 83 wins or something. And it's like, no, you're fine. Like, nobody's saying you're going to finish in last place. We have 12 teams in the playoffs now. It's quite likely that you could get into the playoffs. Nobody's out here saying, no, there's 0% chance. It's not going to happen. But it's always those teams that are like in that middle, maybe slightly above middle ground. No one believes in us. We're going to the World Series. Like, nobody has said that. Stop giving us this straw man. I know maybe you're trying to psych up your clubhouse or whatever, but it's like you're a fine baseball team. So you do you, but you don't need to tell me about it.
Russ, what did you have?
Yeah, I had like the somehow like the mantras or that seem to come out. It's still back on like the cliches or whatever. The one that was on the Washington Nationals like training facility a couple of years back of like no one cares how fast you throw ball 4, and it's like, well, actually, kind of statistically they do, and you should. Like that's just completely and utterly like wrong from like the current understanding.
They should have a fantastic sign of you saying that underneath that saying. Like, well, actually, technically they do.
The Nationals have lost the most games in the majors since they won the World Series. So, is there a relationship between those two things? You decide.
Yeah, I think I will jump on what Darius said about the teams kind of are like taking like being defensive when almost like they don't need to be. Like they're taking a position of like they're kind of like we need to we need to prove everybody wrong or whatever. And I'm like, well, you kind of don't. You just also need to should have just spent money, and then we wouldn't have been in this position to think that you're not going to maybe do that good. It still just comes down to cliches for me, like hearing about sleeping giants or hearing about the team that's like we just got to run it back. Like I understand that like there is certain things that players and managers and coaches will say because they don't want to actually say what they think because that would get them in trouble, or that would that would maybe not be actually. But the soundbite that you just get again and again and again, I just get so bored. And because we get these interviews for these types of interviews, we get them for a whole month or a month and a half. That you'll hear the same thing from 5 players on the same team, and it'll be news every time. And I'm like, I'm really like not bothered. One of the things I don't like, people should be caring about the World Baseball Classic right now, not spring training. Like,
Yes.
we
Watched a
had
great game the other day.
an absolutely like ridiculous tournament qualifier in Taiwan, and it's another semi-ridiculous game. Hopefully tomorrow or not tomorrow, the day afterwards in Tucson, Arizona, between Brazil and Germany to determine who will be the last team to qualify. And
With Andre Agassi's son.
yeah, with Andre Agassi's son to bring it back full circle to the start of our
Darius
podcast.
fact,
And
that
I'm just like, it's like this is where like people's like attention should be. Like this actually matters. Like none of this spring training stuff matters. And I think that's kind of to where I'll be at. And I think the final one is that we'll look at players that we haven't seen before, and people will make snap judgments. And it comes down to the small sample size, but like every Japanese player that comes over is either a phenomenon or they're not as good as a high schooler. It's one of the
Shohei Ohtani's never going to work. Can't do
Yeah,
two-way
no.
player thing.
like his
chance.
batting is good as a high schooler. Well, yeah, I'm sorry, whichever MLB executive that said that, you have potentially said probably one of the most wrong statements like ever in this sport, if not ever. Like you couldn't have been proved more wrong in such a short time period, but now you're basically being proved more and more and more wrong. And I think that we end up with just like because other people know and understand that like this information isn't good, so you just get superlatives on one side or the other. And that wasn't really quick, but there we go. This is me. I'm talking. I always do. So
Fire.
yeah, Quickfire doesn't happen with Russell.
One more very specific thing. If I hear one more person say that the Athletics are a sleeper team for the playoffs, get a different sleeper team, everybody. Like, there's a lot of other ones to pick from.
Oh,
I know they've not been very good, and they might be a bit better, but I've had enough of that now. We can move on.
thank you for that, Darius. I do need to realize that I do need to jump on the Ben Limbo bandwagon, and say that anybody who's just like, oh, this is like the underrated player for next season, or the player who's going to have the breakout, who's already had an effing breakout. Like, geez Louise, like, I've shat on journalists a couple of times already this podcast, but like, it's a little bit of like, actually do this, like choose somebody who's not had 80 games and been phenomenal already. Like, what are we doing?
Billy Capra is your man this year.
Yeah, it's like, if you're going to say James Wood is a breakout, if you're going to say that Adley Rutschman is a breakout because he didn't have a great season or whatever, yeah, or Julio Rodriguez is a breakout, piss off.
Jordan Walker could be a breakout as long as he doesn't step on any more sprinklers.
Well, he's already broken something, Darius, but it's not not any record with his bat. All right. All right. Darius, Rob, thank you very much for your time today. This is a thoroughly enjoyable podcast, and hopefully you listeners can send us your opinions on spring training, be them good or bad. As always, you can find more of us on Batflips_Nerds on Twitter/X and Batflips and Nerds on most other socials and our YouTube account. Please do look out for on the website the season preview series, which has started now. I think Ash's one for the Giants has gone out, so please do start reading those. And if you want to contribute, please look at the links that are provided on our site to get involved. there will be a piece from me about Cleveland at some point. Gav gave the suggestion of 5 reasons to be optimistic. He will get 5 reasons to be pessimistic. But yes, thanks as always, gents, and look forward to chatting you soon. And thank you for listening.